We're back with Superintendent Gary Norris, and we're talking about some of the important things that are changing in Iowa schools, in Waterloo schools particularly. One of the things that is different this year that our students took in late March, early April, the Iowa assessments, a new version of tests, those standardized tests that our kids take every year. We used to use something called the ITBS and the ITEDs. Many of our listeners might be familiar with those. This is a revised test. It's a new test.
Really is, and unfortunately for all the people that like to do what I like to do is and compare not only how each school did, but how each class did or how each learner did. It's going to be a lot more difficult this year. It is a different test. It's a test that is, even though I'm not a big fan of the way Iowa does some of its assessments, especially in regard to No Child Left Behind, it is a standardized achievement test, and that is an important part of testing when you can compare. This is going to be difficult to compare this year because it's a whole new test. It's more rigorous. It's more aligned with the Iowa core curriculum, and the folks that develop this test are saying basically start your trend line over. Don't try to say, well, as compared with last year, they did 10% better, 10% worse, what have you. It's a different test.
And so we all heard the comparing apples to oranges. This would be an example of that.
Or a persimmon.
I'm sure there's a saying for that.
Yes.
So we have begun to get some very preliminary information back, but we don't have it all in yet.
We don't, and so we're just beginning to decipher the reports we're getting back now. The reports, according to Dr. Lindeman, our associate superintendent, even look different than last year. So she and some of the top leaders in each school are trying to wade their way through those reports. So we'll be working on that over the next month or so and have more to share with the public in a not too distant future.
And parents who may be wondering about their own child's results will get a letter that, first of all, shows the results, but then also has information about how to interpret. What does this mean?
And I think, yes, not only that letter, but I think we're going to have some places on our website that they can also go for a little more explanation. But they'll be looking at things like the National Standard Score, or something called NSS, which is a continuum of a score that gradually gets bigger from kindergarten through 12th grade as students learn more. And then they'll be looking at something we're all more familiar with called the National Percentile Ranking. That's from 1 to 100. And I was just using in our last segment that 99th percentile. So parents will see some things that are common to them, but there'll be a lot of things that are different.
And so those personalized letters with your own particular child's scores will be coming out as soon as we have the information to share in a meaningful and understandable way. And as you mentioned, we already have some basic information on our website, www.waterlooschools.org. By the way, we're using that as a new, shorter address on our website, our emails, waterlooschools.org. It's a little easier to remember. The old one still works, waterloo.k12, with a bunch of things coming after that. So we invite parents and others to go to our website to check out the latest on the Iowa assessments. And those results on the Iowa assessments are ultimately going to drive a lot of things in terms of what schools have to do.
Yeah, you know, initially many of us that are close to my age, and I'm old and gray now.
Oh, not me.
But the folks that are in more my generation, that age 50, 60 age, remember that tests have always been given at school. But it was the main result, or the main reason for the test was to say, well, how's Billy, or how's Timmy, or how's Johnny doing? Those tests are still partially used for that, but the way we look at them now is to diagnose where we need to beef up our learning. So, if a third grade class or a third grade section at a school, or even all of our third graders in the district, did not do well on fractions, or did not do well on the way they were interpreting text, or anything that's vital to that grade level, we would know that, and we would say to our teachers, as a district, let's work at fixing that. And so these tests have far broader implications now than just how an individual child did on a test.
And many of our listeners are familiar with some of the steps that we as a school district have had to take in the last few years because of results on the standardized tests in terms of offering transfers and other services to students. Because of the timeline, we don't have good information yet about what that's going to mean for us.
Well, we don't. The wisdom was that No Child Left Behind was going away for Iowa. And the way it was going away is that we were submitting a waiver of No Child Left Behind rules to Washington, D.C. Several months ago, we were told that our waiver preliminarily was a strong waiver. And we were just told recently that maybe it's not very strong and maybe it won't be approved. And that has to do with the fact that our legislature did not, back to our first topic, our legislature did not make tough enough reforms, let's just leave it at that, in all areas to where we could qualify for the waiver. So, back to your question, if that waiver is not approved, then choice will still be alive and well in Waterloo. For instance, there are 11 elementary schools. 8 have made the No Child Left Behind sanction list, not because they're bad schools, but because one or more of their subgroups did not perform at the required level. And we have 3 schools that have not made the sanction list, meaning they didn't have any subgroups of students that were not at the right level. I know this all sounds complicated, but basically that for the last couple of years has given parents the right to move from one of the 8 schools to one of the 3 schools. We've had a few parents take us up on that. There's probably been over the last 2 years 100 to 200 students, ballpark, that have made that move. Most have not, and most have made the decision to stay at their neighborhood school. So we have to, I think what you're inferring and stating is absolutely right. If we need to learn as soon as possible whether the waiver was approved, and then we need to get communication out to parents.
And we absolutely will do that. As soon as we know, we will be in communication with parents.
Every family will receive a letter of what the decision is.
But we probably should emphasize, just to make sure people understand, we don't know yet.
We don't.
So there's not anything for us to share with parents yet, and it's likely to be mid-June before we know.
Unfortunately, that's what I'm hearing. And we just won't know. So what we do in the meantime is we do some preliminary planning and we get ready for going either direction.
Have several contingency plans.
Yes.
Well, the time is drawing very short for us. We have talked a little bit about our new bus service for next year. Durham is going to be our transportation provider. And so the buses will look the same, probably have the same drivers, but going to be operated by a different company. And we think there's going to be some important changes in terms of some of our safety features, our customer service, our routing, some efficiencies. We're working on several different fronts.
We're trying to we're trying to go back and take all of the comments we've had from the public over the last few years, and we're trying to be responsive as possible and provide some solutions whenever we can. We're also taking a look at what taxpayers routinely say to us, and that's you need to be as efficient as possible. And so if there are some routes that could be consolidated without making kids unnecessarily have longer, considerably longer routes, we'll do that. We'll try to save fuel. But student safety still remains our #1 concern, and followed closely by #2, our customer service. And so if you've ever been a parent out there that has not been happy with some situation around busing, and I would guess that probably would touch every parent in the school district, because busing, while in large part works pretty efficiently, pretty effectively every day, there's always going to be glitches. It's a fact. But we take those very seriously, and we're trying to work on those.
And tomorrow is the last day of school for our students.
A cheer just went up all over Waterloo. It was a cheer by students, but parents were not cheering.
Well, and there are, of course, many things that are available for parents and kids this summer to help keep learning alive. We've just sent out a letter to all of our elementary and our middle schools. And if you haven't gotten it in your home yet, it's coming in the next couple of days, to let you know about an online reading program that we're making available as an option to our families.
I think that's free. Yes.
It is free. My On Reader, it's called. And we have graduations tonight. Last night was Expo. Tonight is East High. Tomorrow is West High.
Absolutely. It's that exciting time of the year.
It is. It's an exciting time of the year. A lot of promise, a lot of excitement about future plans for our graduates, and another year coming to a close for teachers and others who've worked very hard.
It was fun last night seeing the family and the students' expressions from Expo High, and all of that work and being successful. It's a great time of the year, and we thank our partners at KBBG for airing this show and for the good work they do in the community as well.
And we won't be back on KBBG until the next school year, but in the meantime, we hope that our listeners will check in with our website to see the latest news. Give us a call if they have any questions. We're there all summer long, and it won't be long before some of our schools are starting back up again.
Absolutely. Cunningham starts back because they're on the alternative calendar. They start back in July.
Yes, and we have some summer school going for some high school students, for kindergarten, this year's kindergarten and first grade that really need an extra boost to get ready for next year, and for our special ed students too.
We do, and we thank parents for all of your support of the Waterloo Community Schools.
And thanks for joining us, and we hope that you'll tune in again next school year.